everybody, it's Bunny, and today we're gonna have a sort of tea vlog talky kind of video. I would say it's a tea vlog, but unfortunately I have no tea because my Starbucks is still closed. I want to tear my face off. My Starbucks has been closed for remodeling for like 15 days now. They were supposed to be open last Saturday. Here it is, it's Tuesday, and still no Starbucks. I need your excuses. None of them are valid. Anyway, it is actually like beyond 2 in the morning right now, but I'm feeling a little bit inspired to talk to you guys. And I feel like year after year, this is a topic that gets asked of me. And I don't know, I've never felt inspired like to talk about it until right now. So I know coming up is sort of like a transition period, maybe for many of you. Maybe you are about to start high school or college, and I've been through it all. So I'm here to tell you guys about my experiences as somebody coming from having anxiety. I know sometimes like dealing with transitionary, what is the word I'm looking for? Dealing with transitions can be especially scary. Sometimes I still feel dread about it, just like remembering how those days felt, like, oh, you're about to start school. I mean, I don't even know, like a new job, like anything can cause feelings like this. But for me, school especially, anytime I would feel a new semester coming on, I would be filled with like dread and anxiety, not knowing what was going to happen that semester, grades, friends, classes, just choosing things, adulting, growing up, all of it for me was very, very overwhelming. One of my childhood memories that I remember the most is I sat down and I was still probably in junior high at the time or grade school. And I remember I was just like sitting on my parents' bed and I was crying and I was like, what happens when I get to be college age? What happens when I'm done with high school? And if I feel like I'm not ready to move on or go to college or move away or move out, like what's gonna happen? I was crying. And you know, my parents have always had an open door policy. I have moved back home more than once in my lifetime. So I'm just going to tell you guys some of my experiences and maybe it will help. Maybe you will also feel like you're not alone, because I definitely have always been a very late bloomer in life. I'm sort of like a directionless wanderer, or maybe that's not the word for it, but I've definitely like not known what I wanted to do in my life. Yes and no. I was born and all through childhood, I wanted to be an actor more than anything. That is the only thing that I ever thought I could really do in my life. And I used to play pretend games all the time in my childhood. I used to make my mom sit down and play David Letterman with me. I think I've told you guys about this before, but I had a little cassette tape recorder with a microphone on it, and I would make my mom like pretend to like interview me, like my mom was David Letterman, and it's so crazy. So that is like what I really innately felt like I wanted to do with my life. But just kind of like growing up and high school, and I've done like several other vlogs about that, like my dreams sort of got squashed and I was made to feel that like acting either wasn't for me or that it was like an unrealistic goal. And also I'm not like a traveling person, so I feel like I would not be good at it at all, because I know like, you know, actors, you have to fly to set, fly to location. You probably have to live in LA to begin with. Probably for many reasons that was not a good career path for me. So by the time that I was like in high school about to graduate, the first thing that I thought I was gonna do was be a fashion designer, because that's another thing I've always been passionate about, was sewing and making clothes and costuming and stuff for the theater department. So I went to 3 different colleges in my life. I went to Texas Women's, which is in Dallas. I did that for 1 whole year. And then I went to a junior college around here, which is San Jac. And then I mostly went to U of H, University of Houston, and that is where I graduated from. I went to Texas Women's, which was an all-girls college, which was an experience for me, because I just feel like all my life, for some reason or another, I don't know why, like most of my friends have been guys, or friends that I was like closest to were guys. So it was just kind of like, I don't know why. I don't know why that is. It was just kind of weird for me. It was a very, very lonely time. First time in my life that I ever lived away from all of my friends and my family and everyone that I know in life. And I don't know why I did not have an easy time making friends there. I literally, unfortunately, don't talk to anybody that I went to school up there with. I had a roommate who lived locally, so all the time she was just going back home because her house was only like 30 minutes away or so. So a lot of alone time. And I actually, it was like an artistic school. There were lots of artistic programs. I actually got a model, a skeleton model, a full-size skeleton model that I borrowed from the art department, and I kept it with me all year. This is how weird I am. I used to like wheel the skeleton around with me, like wheel it into the elevator, wheel it down to the microwave in the commons area, just wheeling a skeleton around. That is my biggest memory that I have from that college experience. I did make one friend, and it was a guy who just so happened to go to that school, and I would always see him in the elevator. So I called him Elevator Boy. I don't know, that's the only thing that like sticks with me is, and we played basketball once. So those are my only memories from there. I was really unhappy. Dallas is a 5-hour drive away from Houston, where I live, and literally every weekend I would drive home from school just to spend the weekend at home with my friends. Most of my friends were still in high school at the time. For some reason, I was more friends with the next graduating class than the class that I graduated in. I don't know why that is. Once again, all my friends pretty much were still in high school at the time. So I would always just drive home, hang out with my friends, and then drive all the way back. So that is 10 hours of driving every single freaking weekend. So by the time that year, 2 semesters was over, I was so unhappy. I just wanted to move back home. My parents convinced me to go to U of H. That's where both of my parents graduated from. So they were like, come on down, try it. You're gonna like it. But that same major in fashion design was not available at University of Houston. So I knew that I was gonna have to pick a different major. What I chose to major in next, so see, flipping majors, totally okay, happens to everybody. So the major that I ended up picking was psychology. It's always something that has interested me, and the next thing that I sort of thought maybe I would like to do is be a counselor for troubled teens with a minor in human development and family studies, and I loved that minor. It was amazing. I feel like I still use so much knowledge that I learned in those classes in my life, just learning about people in all walks of life, learning about children and the elderly and people with special needs, and just learning a lot of very helpful things that I just think that these sorts of classes should be requirements for everybody, because it just teaches you a lot about human beings and you know what I mean? I got into psychology, but I did not really like the classes. Most of the classes were taught by PowerPoint slides. So you would literally come to class and watch PowerPoint slides. It was like being read to in a college class. And that was a little bit weird for me. That was not my favorite. I'm like a visual learner. I also like doing projects and things that are engaging. That is a great way to like retain my interest, and not much of that was going on. So once again, I was just sort of like drifting about, and you know, that's what I say. I feel like there's a lot of pressure in society to do college in 4 years, do it perfect, do it right, know exactly what you want. And I feel like for most people, that's not a realistic goal, or it's not easy. Like, I'm just saying, like, don't beat yourself up if you're in college and you switch majors more than once, or you get in a program and you think it's gonna be right for you and it's not right for you. If you have to drop a class, if you fail something, I feel like that happens to everybody, and I feel like it's important to just remember that, you know, life, and especially school life, it's like a journey, and you're gonna have like bumps in the road, and it only matters like where you end up, you know, at the end of the day. I feel like that's a message that's not often given. It's like, it's okay to fail, but I feel like it is okay to fail, and I feel like it is realistic that you're gonna fail at something. Not everybody is perfect, at anything, I would say, or everything. I just think perfection and expectations of perfection in society is really, really bizarre. So once again, I was sort of like in that major and I felt like I was kind of floundering. I wasn't really enjoying it. You know, I just started to feel like sort of lost. So that is why I took a semester off, and I ended up, well, I didn't take a semester off, but I took a semester of classes at a local junior college just to help me beef up my requirements, you know, to get like math out of the way, and a science, and those are like my not strong points. So I'm gonna be brutally honest. I thought if I got math and science out of the way at a junior college, hopefully it would be easier for me. I literally struggle with math so bad, and science just doesn't interest me. Ironically, the junior college class that I signed up for geology, and it was so hard. You guys, I got a 17 on a test. I still remember that. So ironically, it seemed even harder. So I ended up dropping that class and nearly getting nothing accomplished. I was really into doing theater and musical theater at the time, and San Jac, where I went, had a really amazing theater program. I made a lot of friends. It was a fun experience. So I kind of just ended up taking a semester of very, very light. I think I only took 1 or 2 classes. So of course that extended my entire college years and college experience by some time. But honestly, I just had to take a semester off, basically. Just some time to unwind, kind of really think about it, think about where I wanted to go, what I really wanted my degree to be in. So I took a light semester, and then I ended up going back to U of H. And I took a English class. I was just fulfilling my English requirements, and I ended up getting this professor, and I think he was just a, you know, like when they have teachers that are trying to get a degree or they're in a master's program or something. It's like a student teacher. That's not the word I'm looking for, but I got this really amazing teacher, and I kept up with him. I kept track of him for a couple years because he was doing some awesome stuff. He was like a playwright and a poet. Just his class like really made me fall in love with creative writing and just really getting back into books and reading. I used to read so much as a child. I can't even tell you the number of books that I read. Like literally in like the 4th and 5th grade, I was reading like The Three Musketeers and Phantom of the Opera and all kinds of like classic literature like that. And then for some reason, all through high school, I think I got turned off of reading a little bit because it was like forced to do, like, I took a lot of AP classes, so I was forced to just like read a lot of books that I didn't really care about. So I had kind of fallen out of love with reading, but just getting back into this class really made me remember why I loved reading, why I loved writing. So that is how I got into the creative writing department, the English department, which is what my degree ended up being in. I graduated with a degree in creative writing, and actually like creative writing with a focus in poetry, because there were 2 different creative writing degrees you could get. You could get like a sort of like fiction, nonfiction degree where that is what you focused on, or you could get a poetry degree, which is what I ended up doing. My minor, rather, was in human development and family studies, because like I said, I just loved that so much that I still wanted to take a lot of those classes, and I really felt like it was helpful, practical application in my life. I ended up taking some really amazing literature classes. My absolute favorite college class that I took was also the hardest class. This professor, I think he came from like Harvard or like somewhere like that, and he taught a class on romantic literature like Lord Byron, William Blake, and I was so obsessed with that for a long time, and for a while it influenced a lot of my writing style, where I was writing with references to romantic literature, and I literally feel like I get stupider like every day. I used to could like quote William Blake, and now just like every day I feel like I lose a slice of it, like the further I get away from college, which is a little bit discouraging, but hey, I'm on the road to becoming a geriatric, and that's just the way that life goes. Definitely, I took some of the most fascinating classes. I took a class on environmental literature. I took a class on Native American literature. Also, folklore was another interesting class I took. So I got to learn like about a lot of different like literature things, and frustrating things will happen to you in college. So many frustrating things happened with my minor. It's like two departments split off, and I don't know how one ended up being more about like food technology in relation to human development, but it's like some classes that I had taken that I had gotten credit for to work towards completing my minor suddenly fell off. So it's like I ended up having to take 2 to 3 more classes to finish my minor, and that was just so frustrating because it's like, oh man, I already got those credits, I got good grades in those classes, and now it's sort of like I did all that work for nothing. So I don't know, those were some of my college experiences. I feel like frustrating things will happen. I feel like you will feel overwhelmed. Like some classes that I took, like even that favorite class I told you guys about, the romantic poetry one, that teacher was incredibly strict, and I am somebody, that's sort of like how my anxiety works. I have a really hard time keeping appointments, or like if you tell me like you must be there at 5 o'clock, I'm going to be late. I literally just feel so overwhelmed with like the feeling that I have to do something. So that professor had like a 3 class, you could not be late or miss more than 3 classes or he would drop you, and he wouldn't even tell you. That's what he said. He wouldn't even tell you if he dropped you, so you could have like gone a whole semester and not known. It's just like he took attendance. It's crazy because most college professors do not take attendance. There's no mandatory attendance usually, but every professor is different, and every professor will set their own individual rules and guidelines. Some are going to be super strict, some are going to be super lax. And that year I had gotten pleurisy, I had gotten pneumonia, and I just went in like crying and begging this man. I was like, I love this class, I'm trying so hard. But it had already been like beyond the drop dead date, so I didn't know. Secretly, he couldn't have even dropped me even if he wanted to. I just sort of feel like everybody's college experience is a little bit different. Unfortunately, I only have one friend through my entire college experience that I have kept up with as a friend. That's another thing that can kind of be frustrating about college to me, is it's very different from high school or grade school where, you know, normally unless a couple people move away or move in, you kind of move along with the same people every single year. But college is not like that because you get a lot of drifters who are only taking like 1 or 2 classes that you might be in, you know, as a science fulfillment or a language fulfillment or an English fulfillment. And so you kind of maybe will never see the same people. So it's like you develop friendships and relationships with people that are, you know, in this class, but then after the semester, they're gone and you may never see them again. And that's kind of a sucky thing to me because I sort of like being like a captive audience. I loved growing up where I did in a very small, I always call it like a bubble, but just a very small town where kind of like everybody knew everybody and everybody, it was just like really small. So that was definitely like a big hurdle for me to jump through, like getting used to college. I didn't really like how everything felt so temporary. Or, you know, the same thing with professors. I would get a professor that I really loved and I would only have them for 1 semester. Sometimes I tried to, especially when I got like more concise in my major, if I liked a professor, sometimes they were teaching multiple subjects that fulfilled credits for the same requirement. So a lot of times I would find a professor that I liked and I would try and take multiple classes with that person. So at least there was some continuity there. And then the other thing that I kind of feel like is crazy is unless you're like a doctor or a lawyer or, you know, in that sort of profession, it's kind of like you get a college degree and that's awesome, but like how much practically, you know, do you use that degree? I honestly wish that I had stuck with psychology and more of the human development, because I feel like just with all of the different people that I interact with on a day-to-day basis now, I definitely feel like just having more of an understanding of topics like that would have been helpful like throughout my life, especially more than writing. But you know, I don't know, that's just kind of like a frustrating thing about college to me, is I feel like there's so much much pressure that like you have to go to college or you're never gonna get a job. And I really don't agree with that. I think education is great. And, you know, by all means, I'm not telling anybody to not go to school. But if it's something that's just not right for you for one reason or another, if you try it and you don't like it, you know, if you have anxiety and it's just not good for you and you can't kind of like push yourself through it, I would just say like, don't feel like you're doomed or don't feel like you're like discouraged or incapable of getting a good job if you don't go to college. You know what I mean? So I'm not telling anybody like, don't go to college, stay in school. But I'm just telling you guys, it's not like a death sentence if you feel like it's something that's not personally right for you, or if you can't afford it, or if you can't get a scholarship. There's many different reasons why people do and don't go to college. Overall, I think that my experience was pretty good. Definitely while I was in it, there were things that I loved about it. Like I loved just going out to the campus and walking around. I also felt like I had a lot better energy when I was in college because it sort of was something that like forced me to get up and go and do stuff and like try and interact with people. If you're feeling alarmed, if you're like a late bloomer, if it's giving you anxiety, I just want to tell you, I was there. I went through it. Once you're in it, it's not nearly as terrifying as it sounds with like, you're about to graduate high school. And trust me, I remember how it was when I was about to graduate high school and you literally have everybody in the world that you've ever met being like, so what are you gonna do? Are you gonna go to college? What's your major gonna be? You know, it's like suddenly everybody just wants to know what's up. And a lot of times that can feel very intimidating, especially if you don't clearly know what the answer is. Maybe just say, I'm gonna let fate decide. I'm gonna go with the flow. But no matter what, you know, you get used to it, you form a new routine, and you know, even if you're like me and you don't make a ton of friends in college and you're not in a sorority and you're not like, oh, drinking and partying every night, it's not the end of the world. To each their own, and I would just not feel pressured by anything you see in movies or even people around you or your family. You know, just don't let anybody pressure you into anything that's not right for you. I had friends whose families like forced them to go to some sort of college because it was like their alma mater, it's what they really wanted, you know, and I would just say like, if you can find a way out of that, don't do it, because I know so many people that were so unhappy for all those years doing it, and I feel like they would have had a better life experience. So I don't know, maybe try and sit your parents down and say, hey, like, I'm really passionate about going here or doing this. And I don't know, I feel like my parents have always been very supportive and very lenient with me. So my dad really just wanted me to go to college. I don't so much think that he really cared like where I went. I think he's very happy that I did end up going to U of H because that's once again where he graduated from, but it was never like a high pressure situation. But that's just my experience. I feel very fortunate. I always feel very fortunate to have gotten like the parents that I got. And that's another thing that people ask me to vlog about all the time is like my upbringing and my childhood and stuff like that. Maybe I'll do that. Thumbs up if you want to see, if you want to hear. I feel like I definitely lucked out in that department because I feel like I could always like talk to my parents like friends and not, you know what I'm saying? La 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 la. I definitely just remember like the feeling, or I feel like there's like things that people say and they're like, oh, you're gonna go to high school now. But for me, high school was a very easy transition from junior high. I know some places don't even have a junior high. It's just like you go from like middle school straight to high school. So maybe that's kind of like a scarier feeling, but once again, it's sort of like that feeling that like, oh, now everything's gonna be different. And maybe for the first couple days or the first week, you feel like everything is different. But as soon as you settle in a routine and you're like, oh, like the school is bigger, we have lockers now, like all kinds of stuff like that, the stress just sort of like melts away a little bit easier. And I honestly preferred high school over any other school pretty much. I really did enjoy junior high. Junior high was a very fun time for me, and I probably had a closer knit group of friends that I hung out with and did activities with more so in junior high than any other school. I feel like sometimes that's like not the norm experience though. Definitely I had a very simple transition from junior high to high school. I think for me, it was about the feeling of like getting more independence. Having freedom for me is just like the most important, greatest thing. You know, I learned to drive. I got a car. I could drive myself to and from school. If I got sick at school and I had to leave, I just got in my own car and left. You know, there's more of an option with classes and what sorts of classes you're going to take in high school than there is in other grades. You kind of get to pick whether you want to do art or music or theater. So there was more liberty and more choice there, and that's something that personally makes me feel more comfortable, especially the number of choices that I had in high school was so much smaller than when you get to college and then you get a big, you know, like catalog of all the classes that you can take, and it's like a phone book. That's how thick it is. But definitely just sort of like warming up into that independence and choices into high school definitely helped me out a great deal. And by the time you're a senior, I feel like for the most part life gets so easy. I was like a teacher's aide for like 4 out of the 6 periods that I had every single day. So I was literally just mostly sitting there, hanging out, you know? So definitely a lot less stressful by my junior and senior year for sure. Don't ever let life feel so overwhelming to you. I just get scared when I see messages and tweets and Instagram posts from a lot of people saying that school is making them feel suicidal or very anxious or very depressed. I know that it's hard. You know, I dealt with my fair share of bullying and all sorts of just terrible things that just make you not want to go to school anymore. And unfortunately, that's kind of stuff that usually you can't get out of, you know, during your 12 or 13, if you do kindergarten, your 13 regular years of school, unfortunately, unless you can do homeschooling or something like that. I feel like that is something that especially I did not deal with in college. I did not deal with bullying and harassment and things like that. But also, you know, I was sort of like socially devoid with not being in a lot of clubs and activities. I did do theater and stuff. Thankfully, that was not a problem, really. There were a couple people I didn't get along with, but for the most part, you know, in college, I didn't experience anything like that. Probably if you're in a sorority or a fraternity or something like that, you might have more of a chance to experience something like that. But at least I can say, for the time that I was in college, those problems pretty much went away. Only when I got back into adulthood. Oh, there they are again. I think college is certainly a good thing for everybody to experience if you feel like it's right for you and you get the opportunity. If you feel like it's not for you, don't be afraid to like sit the people down around you, you know, your family, your friends, or whatever, and just tell them, hey, this isn't right for me, this isn't working for me. You know, by the time you're in college, you're an adult, and although you may feel pressure from your family or people around you, at that point in your life, at least legally, usually, you are in control of your own destiny at that point, even though you're really young. And that's a time I feel when a lot of people are just learning to get their voice and like, hey, I'm an adult now. You know, don't be afraid to use your own voice, even though you might be young, even though you might not be a professional yet or a working person. You know, your voice and your right to control your own life and your own destiny is still yours, even though sometimes I feel like it might feel overwhelming to take charge of your own voice and your own destiny. But just don't let it get the best of you. You will figure it out. You will land on your feet and you will find out what's right for you. Don't be afraid to change your major, even if you lose a couple credits, even if it sets you back a year or 2 years or whatever. It's better to change it and get into something that you're going to be passionate about, that you would like for your job to be, or just something that expands your mind that you're very, very interested in. I have to say, the other class that I took that's been the most helpful for my life was a basic pharmacy class, and I learned so much in that class, just about like regular over-the-counter medicines and sunscreens and all kinds of stuff. So if your college offers a basic pharmacy class, you might want to take that. That ended up fulfilling one of my science credits. I feel like I'm jumping around topics here so bad, but I'm just like stream of consciousness telling you guys ideas and topics that are popping in my head. But that's the other thing that I can encourage you guys to do, because I ended up getting a little bit creative with my math and science credits, since those were not my strong suits at all. But I ended up finding that pharmacy class, which ended up fulfilling one of my science credits. And the other class that I ended up taking for my other science was a nutrition class where I learned all about food and eating healthy, you know, advice that I didn't listen to because I still love my fast food. At least I learned. I should know better, but it was just like something that was a lot better for me. And I would say easier. I mean, definitely it was easier. I'm not even gonna lie and pretend like it wasn't. I just totally lost my train of thought because of course my camera overheated for the second time during the duration of this video. So I had to like set it on the floor in front of a fan, let it cool, all that jazz. Sometimes I feel like I could write like the late bloomers handbook to life. I know that a lot of people are like that though, so don't let it get you down if you feel like I'm graduating from high school, I'm not ready to just like jump into college, because some people do need to take a year off or a semester off, sort of like figure out life, figure out how things are gonna go. So if that happens to you, you know, don't feel like a freak of nature about it. A lot of people have to do that. Or if you just are in it and you're like me and you start to get too overwhelmed, too stressed out, it's okay to take a semester off or a year off, you know, if you have to work and stuff like that. I did work while I was in college, so that was another tricky thing, you know, just balancing like a job and college classes. Sometimes things like that can get very stressful, very overwhelming, very difficult to deal with. So, you know, if you just kind of have to take some time off and find that balance and recenter yourself, don't beat yourself up about it. If you have to drop a class, don't beat yourself up about it. I guess just the moral of the story is no matter what you're going through, don't beat yourself up about it, because you're not the only person in the world having those experiences. You're not the first person, nor will you be the last person that those sorts of things have happened to. So that is pretty much all I can say on the subject matter. If you guys would like for me to sort of hone in and talk about, you know, more of a high school experience or more of a college experience or more of like my major, or if you have more specific questions, let me know. I would also be open to doing like a Q&A of some sort about high school, college, school days. So maybe we will do that. I don't know. If you guys have any questions, just leave them down below. Also, if you guys have had experiences going through these things, or if you're going through them now, let's just leave some comments down below. Let's try and be encouraging, or just simply all sharing our experiences with one another. Everybody who's in the comment section who might be reading the comments, you know, maybe they'll read something that resonates with them and a discussion can happen and it could be helpful. I always love to see Swamp Family helping each other out. I see that a lot of times in the comments, people making friends, people just discussing, you know, different things that are going on with them. And I just think that that's one of the greatest things that people can do, is just be honest and open with their real life experiences, because that helps people to understand, you know, that they're not the only ones who may be going through something. So if any of these scenarios resonated with you, I hope it helped you to feel better and less alone. And no matter what, you know, we are adaptable creatures, human beings. We adapt. Even though some of us may be resistant to change, you will eventually, you know, settle into a new routine, a new way of life, a new place to live, a new group of friends, and you will get through it. Just don't let yourself feel too afraid and overwhelmed. And I always think it's healthy, especially those of us with anxiety, you know, to find different ways to challenge ourselves in a healthy manner, and to just kind of like try and overcome things. Once again, that's just my experience, my personal take on my own mental health. So if that's not something that's for you or is okay with you, or it's not something that you believe in, that's cool. We can agree to disagree. In my life, with anxiety and depression, I always like to sort of see how far I can step out of my boundaries in healthy ways, challenge myself to do new things, and just sort of like, you know, have good mental health practices. So yeah, leave me some questions down below. If you guys would like for me to once again hone in on any particular topics, let me know. Thank you guys so much for being here today, for hanging out and for watching. If you're not already and you'd like to be, hit that button down below, subscribe, become a member of the Swamp Family, and give an alligator its wings. I love you guys so much, and I will see y'all tomorrow. Bye!